la la! Hello everybody and welcome back. Okay, so today we are going to be going over some bosses. Now this is primarily meant for those that are just somewhat starting out brand new and they're kind of confused on what to do with bosses and where some legendaries actually pop from. Now if you did watch my previous video that I uploaded yesterday or the day before, depending on how soon I edit this, but every single zone is going to have its own dedicated boss. However, each and every single one is going to be unique to its own. Weapons, stats, everything that you carry with you is going to definitely matter for every single boss. However, if you're already level 50 or a high enough level, then most of this stuff isn't really going to affect you until you hit the desert and maybe quite possibly even just the snow area. But then again, when you're already that level, you tend to not really worry about getting hurt, mostly because you're already overpowered. But before we end up getting started with today's video, hi! I do a lot of stuff now, and you should definitely like the video as it does help me come out with more content like this for you guys. Now let's go ahead and get started with today's video now, shall we? Okay, so we're starting off in the beach section. There is going to be a pirate and there is going to be a mermaid boss that you could go ahead and fight. To be honest, you can't go wrong with either one. So we'll go to Pirate Island real quick. When you do enter, you're gonna notice a couple of enemies that do some crazy AoE damage if you're new. Clearly, I can just go through these like a hot knife through butter, so this is not gonna affect me at all. So when you're already a high enough level, you don't necessarily need to worry about anything. However, there's somebody here who I can notice that is actually struggling and I probably have to heal them. Okay, there we go. All right, so we defeated the enemy here, which is the boss. This one is extremely easy. I would just definitely recommend maybe just getting a weapon that does some long range. Speaking of long range, I do use a coral staff. However, this is going to be a little useless once I go up to a certain degree within the maps. Okay, so I had to do this a couple of times. I probably had to defeat like 3 additional pirate boss enemies over here, but I finally got a mermaid. If you ever notice that you are not getting the boss that you really want, just clear out the entire section if you're able to. All right, now we have the Mermaid Cove. This is where you could go ahead and get the coral staff. This one is extremely easy. It's just pretty much trying to find out exactly where she's located within the map, and you can actually zoom in and out of the minimap so you can pretty much see where she's at exactly. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and not shoot any projectiles at her, but what I am gonna go ahead and do is I want you to pay attention to the pattern that she does. You theoretically just need to find a spot where it just has a clear opening for you, which would be around right here for me. And from here, we're just gonna be chilling. And there we go. So we didn't get any legendary, which is fine, but let's go ahead and exit this one. You're gonna have to probably do this a couple of times in order to actually get anything really good out of this. I know I probably ended up getting like 2 coral staffs within my entire playthrough of the game, so it lets you know how difficult this might actually be when you are going for legendaries. So expect to really put some time into this. Alright, so we're going to move up 1 into the forest ruin section. Now, this is a particular boss which I really enjoy and I'm trying my best to get a fire claymore from. Forewarning though, I would say if you're a high enough level, make it at least level 20 if you're coming in here. That way you could just speed run this entire thing. The faster you do it, the better. Now, it's completely up to you if you want to go ahead and clear out the entire map or if you just want to go ahead and ignore absolutely everything in your path. I'm still leveling up, as you could tell, so of course I'm gonna go ahead and take the time to go ahead and clear pretty much everything as I'm going. And we are here. So this is where you could get the fire claymore. This is extremely important that you guys kind of learn the pattern. Even though it's a little sporadic, it is learnable when you are in here. I'm gonna go ahead and take a couple of hits so you could see how much my health will go down if you're in here at a level 30 using certain armors such as I am, but you could kind of get an idea by watching the boss and everything if you have not actually fought this particular boss just yet. Naturally, he's going to spawn in 2 additional NPCs to help him out. The sooner you can take those out, the better. Most because if you're not able to keep track of the projectiles that come after you, then the extra ones are not going to help on top of what he's currently doing. At any point, if you notice your health is too low, you don't have enough health potions, or if you get scared, hit R so you can teleport right back to Haven and you do not have to worry about dying right there and then. Okay, so it looks like our next one is called a wooded thicket. Now that we're inside of the wooded thicket, I'm actually going to go ahead and skip all of the enemies that you see around me. You can get rings from either the red or the green fairy that's inside of here. Since I'm not really going to stay dedicated to my curl staff, this isn't going to really help me in the long run, so I'm going to actually just go ahead and skip those. Eventually, I am going to probably either go back to a sword or to a dagger at some point. But since I can't really use any of the weapons inside of this entire dungeon, we're just going to briefly go through everything here. So now that you made it to the boss, this one is actually pretty easy. There is one move that she ends up doing, which might berate players out there that might not know the pattern for it. I would definitely be careful because if you get hit enough, it will actually end up draining your entire health bar relatively quickly, and it's those little fireflies. If you end up getting into a position where you're not too sure what to do, you can hit R on your keyboard to teleport back to Haven, or you can hide behind the pillars where none of the projectiles will hit you. To be honest, once she starts doing this leaf attack thing, it's actually very easy to go ahead and try to navigate through by dodging and stuff. There are 3 drops that she has, however, none of those are going to benefit me, so we're going to completely skip that over. Okay, so we're actually going to go ahead and move up 1, and we are now officially in the swamp area. Hopefully by now you actually have a pretty decent level before you do decide to come in here, mostly because the bosses are starting to throw 10 times more projectiles at you versus how they were before in the other 2 areas. So kind of get ready to learn patterns. So we'll start off with the bog. Now, I would definitely recommend trying to learn this by yourself before you decide to go in here with more players. If you're not used to an insane amount of projectiles coming at you once this does happen, it's going to confuse you when you have a ton of people in here, even when you have the players set to a very low opacity or just not show them at all. She does tend to throw things sporadically, but however, there is a moment of peace when she kind of just stays still for 1 second, and you can kind of get an idea of where to go when she's not berating you with a ton of random things. Any other NPC that might come out after she spawns in enemies, I would definitely get rid of those, especially if you are struggling. The sooner that you get rid of them, the better. I would definitely practice this boss a couple of times. Honestly, this one isn't too hard. Again, it's all about just memorizing how she throws her projectiles and where you should go with the patterns. Now, the bog for me is completely easy. However, the mushroom den is a little different. You have a ton of enemies here that throw projectiles from all sorts of corners. I do see a ton of people, unfortunately, just kind of die in here, so kind of be prepared to expect a couple players in here that might actually just die randomly, unless you're by yourself. But once everybody goes in here as a group, everything around you will start to activate their AoE, so kind of be prepared to really dodge and keep your distance as much as possible. Their patterns for their projectiles are pretty predictable, so it's not too crazy unless you decide to get really close, but get ready to move around a lot during this whole entire dungeon section. So for this boss, this one's going to be a little different. Yes, the projectiles that this boss actually shoots at you are completely avoidable and they are very predictable, so all you have to really do is really move around with it. When you see projectiles, move with the boss. Eventually, at some point, there is going to be some crazy red lit zones. Avoid those at all costs, otherwise you are going to literally get stuck in those and you have to back away. Once it's done kind of doing that, you can actually just move your way in and attack as much as you can, basically. You're going to see 3 enemies, I believe, on the left and the right and the top. Get rid of those as soon as possible as well. Honestly, I actually prefer to do this dungeon myself, by myself, mostly because too many people activate too many of the enemies around me. So we are finally in the desert zone. Hopefully by now you do have somewhat of decent gear before you even consider coming over here, yet alone your levels. It really does matter at the very end of the day, so make sure you're prepared and have a ton of health potions, if anything, just in case. So first up is the worm's nest. Now, if you've played the gauntlet and you've made it to a certain wave, you've actually fought this boss before. Now, this boss is actually very simple. It's very easy to memorize, especially again, if you've already done the gauntlet, you already know the patterns for it and everything. It's just having to be extra careful in here. That's about it. Now, kind of how the bog works, this one I want to do like a somewhat of a similarity towards it. It's going to throw a ton of things at you. However, there is a breaking point where it will throw literally one ginormous projectile, and that's the perfect time to go ahead and go in while it's doing that. That's pretty much it. Try to avoid anything else that it throws at you. Now, this specific boss, I used to be completely terrified of doing on my own. I think when I was introduced to this at like level 25, I freaked out. So ever since then, I have never gone back into this dungeon until recently. But to be honest, after doing the gauntlet a couple of times and kind of learning down the pattern and stuff, you kind of get an idea of how to avoid pretty much losing inside of this dungeon. Funny enough, when I actually came over here, they were already pretty much done with this boss, but she ends up throwing a ton of projectiles as well. But however, there is a moment where she stands still, which is perfect for you to go ahead and go in and just pretty much attack her. The pattern is super duper easy. I would suggest coming in here maybe at a certain level before you consider coming in here at like level 25, level 30. Get at a comfortable 35 or so, and then come in here by yourself and learn it. So we are in the final zone. If I could even exaggerate how insanely crazy this area is, first of all, I would express it. I haven't really explored this section too much, mostly because I already had died previously a couple of days ago at level 44 at something dumb. But now that I'm pretty much at that level again, pretty much my first time coming back over here since then. However, I am going to give you guys a forewarning. Do not underestimate absolutely anything in here. I am doing all of this for the very first time, so if there are any patterns, I have no idea what I'm expecting when I come in here. So we are going through this dungeon for the very first time. I haven't actually played through any of this, so this is all brand new to me. There are a bunch of NPCs in here. I mean, obviously you have like the same old, they throw things at you. There's like this weird looking beetle thing that's really big. I would definitely get rid of those as soon as possible because they can be a bit of a menace. Unfortunately, somebody died in here, so we ended up losing a player in here, and it was just me and someone else. Fast forward to the boss. Okay, now this is one that I could not figure the pattern out for the life of me for the longest time until it was almost near mid health, maybe a little below mid health, but it throws projectiles in all little areas. Then you have 4 spiders that will pop up in 4 corners that will disappear eventually, so you don't have to waste your energy, you don't have to waste your health on that. But it seems like when that does pop up, that's like probably the best moment to go ahead and try to get in to get some damage put into the enemy. But it's kind of hard for me to figure out where exactly the best opening was, which is why you kind of see me struggling going in and out of the vicinity of where the NPC is at. So kind of looking back at the footage, I'm still trying to grasp where I can go and without getting hurt too much. And I'm holding some legendaries that I really don't want to lose right now. These are Mr. Vapors, so if I lose those, then I'm just gonna feel terrible if I lost like some of his legendaries. So I have to be very careful. At some point, the player that was playing with me ended up running out of health, so I threw the rest of my health potions. So now, yeah, I do have to be extremely careful in what I'm doing. Honestly, I would say like 10, 11 minutes later, the boss is finally defeated. This is one that I am definitely probably going to have to do with a group or probably study on my own to learn the pattern, but it's going to be a little difficult because again, I do want to be at a comfortable state with all of my stuff and my armors and stats and levels. I feel like the more that I have everything maxed out, the better and easier this will end up being, especially if I'm going in here not knowing what the heck I'm doing. Okay, so truth be told, I had no idea that all of my health potions would actually be drained during that entire dungeon, so I have to inevitably go grind for some more and hopefully attempt the next boss. Alrighty, after all of that time, I got my health potions just in case I brought my totem rather than my toxic fluid. Now, the Ice Palace. I'm not gonna lie, this one is a lot easier and more tame compared to the other boss that we just did. This one, the pattern is very, very simple to actually catch on very early on. It's just a matter of just avoiding everything while there's other projectiles coming after you, while there's a circular motion of all of the deer's projectiles, if that makes sense. This boss is actually so easy. Somebody actually went in here by themselves. I just came in because somebody already activated the portal for this, so I decided to come in. Why not, right? I have to finish this video whether I like it or not, and whether I'm scared or not. But there was actually nothing to be afraid of inside of this dungeon particularly. But fair warning, like I always say, make sure you're a high enough level so you can take the hits that you're getting in from this, as well as your armor. And those are all of the bosses that are in the game currently. When I do go inside of certain dungeons, I am going to play carefully, especially if I have very good items on me. That, and I don't feel like restarting my entire character yet again to grind to level 50. So, if you feel like you need to play slow when you're inside of these boss dungeons, that is absolutely fine. And for those speed demons, you do you. As always, again, make sure you guys do like the video, as it does help me come out with more content like this for you guys. And until then, I will see you guys all later in the next video. Okay, bye!